Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Flag. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Michael at Arizona Christian. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here. How hot is it in Glendale today?
It's been a warm one for sure. I think we're projected highest, I think 118 today, so it's up there.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
And I thought we were bad down here in Florida, but
right. You guys got the humidity though. That's what we always say: humidity versus dry heat. But hot is hot, regardless of whatever way you look at it.
yeah, t today's one of those days where I'm hearing thunder and lightning, and then I look out my window and it's bright and sunny, so you just don't know what's going to happen. But
Absolutely.
well, we're talking here August 27th. I'm assuming you guys are back in school and classes have started and all that stuff. In terms of the recruiting process, since you guys are a spring sport,
Mhm.
wh are you still recruiting class of 26 high school kids? Because for whether that's people who maybe didn't go to college or transfers or anything like that, or are you primarily focused on class of 27 for the next year?
A little bit of both, to be honest with you. So we have basically a little bit of a gap from day school starts, which was on Monday, up until I think we have up until technically next week to get them enrolled into school. So there's a couple 26s that we're trying to get in last second here, as well as some college transfers. But also on top of that, we still technically recruit because we are spring sports. So because of that, we kind of have the luxury of if they don't necessarily have to fall in during the fall, we can kind of bring them in the spring. I'm always, I'm one of those coaches that are very blunt and honest and saying, hey, you're a semester behind the eight ball in a way. You're going to come in here and compete, and there's no guarantee of everything or anything for that matter. But at the same time, come in here and compete, and be ready to play in spring. So we have a couple that potentially may be doing that too. So.
Okay. Well, in terms of, it being a new sport, right? You're only one season under your belt. Um, i- what's the split, I guess, of recruiting the quote unquote traditional high schools recruit versus, say, transfers or junior college players? That way you don't have, 15 freshmen that, every year that you're trying to
Yeah.
trying to balance everything out.
Yeah, it's a definite split that I would say I like to lean more towards the veterans that are coming in. Obviously, what we're trying to do is we got to have the freshmen that started from year one to understand our foundation, really build a foundation from ground level and understand the culture that we have here. And then as they obviously progress year after year, by the time they're, juniors and seniors, they're going to be well versed in as far as, with what we do, how we do things, as far as from a culture standpoint, but also on top of that, just kind of grooming, the underclassmen, below them as the years progress. But also with that, with us being a year one program and with the, expectations that we have here at ACU, we definitely want to have some of the upperclassmen that that are coming in that do have some experience playing college flag football, with bringing them in. But with those, it's not necessarily just bringing anybody and everybody in, just because we want to make sure that we have someone that we are bringing in that is, I guess you could say, a veteran leadership, but also with that understand the culture, understand what we're about more than just it is having the leadership or the experience in playing.
Okay. Now, one thing in talking to coaches, a lot of times you see, or especially with a new sport, right, is you're a lot of people say, "Hey, we're looking for athletes," right?
Yes.
Like, and I can train them, teach them the football stuff. So, are you looking at, you know, athletes from other sports at all, or are you just primarily looking for folks who played flag in high school or club or whatever?
No, I look for everybody. I look for anybody and everybody. Obviously, having some flag experience is great, but the one thing that I'm big on, especially, and when I talk to all, girls that are in high school right now, is really, hey, be a multi-sport athlete. Being a multi-sport athlete translates so much as far as into flag, whether it's volleyball, soccer, softball, track. All those things are all things that, basically translate into flag one way or another. So with that, I highly recommend and I highly encourage girls to go be those multi-sport athletes. Having someone that is necessarily someone that maybe has only 1 year of experience of playing flag under their belt, just because of obviously state sanctions, things of that nature, where it's their programs are barely up and running, so they're not necessarily familiar with the flag game, but they've been playing softball their whole life, or they've been playing volleyball, basketball, something like that. It's great because again, those things translate over, and as long as they have the passion, and that's why I love coaching girls, is because of the passion and the I call them sponges, just because of the passion and their willingness to learn and kind of evolve the game. So with that, I'm all for being a multi-sport athlete in a way.
Yeah, I love that. In terms of, like you mentioned, a lot of states maybe have just sanctioned it, so high school is not as, let's just say, uniform across the country, right? And there's the AAU club circuit. So like, where are you going to look at players? Is it high school games? Is it club? Is it ID camp, combine type things, or all of the above?
All the above, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
During the fall semester, it's really obvious in Arizona specifically, and kind of in the West Coast. We are primarily a fall sport during high school season. So with that, what we do during the fall season is, we have our, workouts, we have our conditioning programs that we do here at ACU, but it also gives me the luxury of kind of going around locally and looking at games and basically, scouting those games. But also with that, like, Arizona and California are going to be, their fall sports. Vegas is a winter sport, so it kind of gives me that transition, into, from end of fall into winter season, to where I can go out and look at some schools there, look at some athletes in Vegas. But also on top of that, you have the club circuit, because that's when the club circuit really starts, is right in, for those fall sports. That's when they start. It's really going into winter, and we'll host some talent ID camps here at ACU, but also with that regional camps, as far as with what they do at the NFL flag level and all that. I definitely go to those college showcases that are around the West Coast, and kind of just pick what I can, and talk to as many athletes as I can also.
Okay. Well, any of those things, what
Mhm.
is it that catches your eye? What are you recruiting for? What's kind of that hierarchy of things, both on and off the field?
Yeah, you kind of already hit on it earlier when you said that, you talk to coaches, and coaches really just talk about, hey, I can coach you on football, which that's what I can do. I'll coach football, I'll coach X's and O's until I'm blue in the face. But the one thing that I look for is character and effort, right? Those are the two things that I really look for, is how are you, when things don't go your way. If you're at a combine and you're not running the best times, or you're not, catching every ball, or whatever it is. We understand, as college coaches and recruiters, we understand that there's so much that goes into football, to where timing, understanding velocity of someone that's throwing a ball versus catching a ball, all those things. So I don't really look for drop passes, or and just basically say, okay, she's not good enough because she's not catching a ball. Understand there's more that goes into it. But what are you doing when things aren't going your way? Are you still high character? Are you still having your chin up? Are you still also not only taking care of yourself and making sure you're positive, but keeping the girls around you positive? That's what we want to do.
Okay, awesome. Well, in terms of the roster, is there an ideal number that you're looking to hit each year that you're trying to get to?
Yeah, I mean, universities all have somewhat of a set roster that that you want to have in place, as far as when it comes to recruiting. Ours is typically right around 30 to 32, so we're on the higher end. As far as when it comes to numbers that we want to hit. Currently, we're at 28, so we're right there at that number. We got a couple spots and a couple roster spots that are still open, which we're hoping to fill. If not by next week, then at the springtime. But with that, that's the one thing that, with us here at ACU, that they're really starting to talk about, as far as for future, as well as is really kind of bumping that enrollment up. But also with bumping those rosters up, we're looking to build a developmental team as well. So with that, you'll have your primarily travel team. And then with that, you'll also have your developmental team, which will still go out and compete and whatnot, but not necessarily your travel team or your varsity team per se.
Okay. Well, and that's where we see a big difference, right? There's a lot of varsity teams, a lot of bigger schools have the club teams,
Right.
and that sort of thing. But, you know, the question people always ask is, okay, is there athletic scholarships available for flag football at this point? I mean, and you figure you got teams like Nebraska and
Hmm.
then you got Division two, Division three, NAIA, junior college that all have varying degrees. So I guess you don't have to give me hard numbers here, but just give me an idea of what is that financial aid situation looking like, cost of attendance are there kids getting scholarships to play flag at ACU?
Yeah, absolutely. So each individual athlete is essentially scholarship that are on roster. So but as far as the amount of, what we're able to offer, it just kind of depends on, the things that we do at ACU. It's a little bit different just because we accumulate, we're not able to stack scholarships here, be honest with you. So we don't stack in academic and athletic. But with that, what we do is we accumulate and we take a look at their athletic. We take a look at their academics as well. So if they have great academics, we can kind of bolster up their offer. As opposed to someone that may not have that, so we're able to kind of vary as far as when it comes to your overall cost of scholarships. But typically, they average anywhere from, they want to say right around between 40 to 45% of the tuition.
Okay. All right, that's good. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school. Maybe some folks not familiar. Uh, you've had a full season under your belt. What are some things that you like about the school? Maybe some things folks wouldn't even know by going through the website.
Yeah, ACU, obviously we are a now going into our second year of competition. I basically started the program from ground up, as far as when it comes to building the roster, building, the everything, even the facilities, So we on campus, we're located right in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona. We're in Glendale, but you're considered, right there on the one side of the street is Phoenix, the other side is Glendale, So we're right smack in the middle. So we have tons of obviously things to do when you do come at ACU. But also with that, as far as on campus, everything that you need to do as far as to be a great athlete at ACU is all located right here. So all our facilities are on campus. Our gym is on campus. We have two practice fields. We have our game field. We have our locker room. Pretty much everything that you need is right here on campus. So that's kind of one of the luxuries that we have here at ACU that not a lot of other schools in the West Coast do have. As far as when it comes to having all facilities on campus, have your gym, have your practice facilities, have your locker room. Literally everything is right here to where you walk outside your dorm, you walk 100 yards and you're on the field. You walk another 50 yards and you're in the locker room. So everything is right there, which is great, especially on the West Coast, which is, kind of one of the things to where obviously all the programs that are building are building the program and building the foundation as well, but may not have the luxuries of the facilities that we have here at ACU.
Okay, great. Well, one of the biggest challenges for new student athletes coming into college is balancing the academic demands and the athletic demands. How specifically are your student athletes doing that? What kind of support services does the school have in place to make sure they're successful on both sides of that?
That's a great question, and I'm big when it comes to academics. I am extremely big when it comes to academics, and anybody that I talk to, I ask them that straight up. Hey, how's your grades? What's going on with that? Because and during the recruiting process, I even talk about those things. Right? Hey, at the college level, it's a lot different than high school to where you just go to school, practice for 2 hours, and then you have a whole bunch of free time. How I run my program is we have lifts, we have meetings on top of meetings, and then after meetings we have more meetings, and then we have practice. So with that, it becomes a little bit of time demanding. So understanding your time is very very key in your schedule. But also with that, as far as when it comes to ACU, we have a lot of academic support as well. So we offer free tutoring here at school. So, if you do have any, if you are struggling in a class or whatever it is, we have free drop-in tutoring through what they call ACE, which is Academic Center of Excellence, to where you can go in there, have free tutoring. But also with that, Dr. Greg Johannes he's our director of that. He's also a professor on campus, so he has access to all of the athletes' grades and whatnot. So if he starts to see that some of our athletes may be struggling in a class or whatever it is, he's going to reach out to them personally and say, hey, let's get you set up for tutoring, but also with that, CC me on it too, to where we can, essentially have that conversation. And then the other thing as well is that if it's something to where obviously during the spring schedule, it becomes even more time demanding because of travel and all that stuff too. So with the ACE, what they'll also do as well is that they'll also set up Zoom basically meetings with our athletes. So if they have a test or they have an essay that they have to write, and they need to go through a thesis statement, or they need to go through their final draft and proofread it before they submit it. They're able to set up that interview, or not an interview, but able to set up that meeting with with basically a tutor over the phone while they're traveling, to make sure that they get all the access and help that they need.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's fast forward, put us in the heart of that conference schedule during the season.
Yeah.
Walk me through what's a typical week look like. When are classes, practices, game cadence, meals, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we're a long day. So we start our days at 7 a.m. So we have lifts first thing in the morning. They typically have from 7 to 8. After that, they'll start classes probably 8:30 till about 2, give or take, obviously depending on the day and schedule. From that, they'll go to lunch. After lunch, I give them a little bit of time to start doing their homework. Get their academics, get their books handled and all that, because a lot of my coaching staff is coming from off campus. So with that, give them the opportunity to come here and get ready and set up. Then we start meetings. So we typically have an hour long team meeting. And then from that, we'll break off into offensive and defensive meetings where we'll probably go another hour to hour and a half. And then from that, we will pretty much hit the field. So we're big as far as when I hit in the field, that we have our mental reps, right? I'm big as far as getting the mental side of things and getting you mentally prepared for practice before we even hit practice. So we do that, and then we hit practice for we're a 2 hour practice. We don't really go long 3 hour practices or anything like that, because of the fact that we try and prepare you on the mental side of things beforehand. And not only that, because of the Arizona heat, we don't want them out there, dying. So, so with that, we kind of do it that way. And then we film every practice. So what we do is at the end of every practice, we'll upload film and kind of break down film at that point after practice as well. So during meals, obviously in between, they'll have their lunch. I always strongly suggest that I give them the opportunity to eat something light, during our meetings, just because of the fact that we're going to be, on the field for a little bit. And then post practice, they get off the field, they have a hot meal ready for them, and then we pretty much go into team meetings at that point.
Okay. Well, we talked about roster size on the player side. Let's talk about it on the coaching side. Who all's there to help you? What role does everybody play on the football side of things?
Yeah, I'm one of the coaches that I'm very, very attention to detail when it comes to the little things. I'm gonna nitpick a lot of stuff, and with that, me being by myself, I couldn't do it. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't do it. It's a disservice to the girls at that point. So with that, I actually have a total of 5 coaches that are on staff. So I have 2 co-offensive coordinators, Coach Whitney Warmus and Coach Sergio Ramirez. They are prospectively within their with their jobs and what they do. They also are head coaches of their own high school programs. So they run their own high school programs, and then they come over here and coach on the offensive side of the ball. I have Coach Sammy Menton, and we just brought in Coach B Ben Johnson, who's going to be basically our co-defensive coordinator. So we have those 4 that are basically, as far as when it comes to coaching day to day. We also have Coach Ray Black, who is our assistant coach, who kind of helps with a lot of stuff, but she's also more on the back end of stuff when it comes to recruiting coordinators, as well as when it comes to social media stuff. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm a guy and I am not the best when it comes to that stuff, So I let her handle that stuff. So we do that, and then we also have a graduate assistant that we're looking to bring on to help basically when it comes to setting up practices and film and all those things as well.
Okay. And you talked about it a little bit there, but talk to us a little bit more about your coaching style and maybe the style of play that you guys are looking to play there.
Yeah, I'm again very blunt and honest coach. I'm a hard coach. I'm one of the ones where I'm hard. I'm Italian, so by nature I'm a loud coach. But one thing that I coach with is I coach with passion, energy, and love. So the one thing that I do is it always comes from a place of love, and it always comes from a place of I know you can do better. So I'm never a degrading coach where I'm saying you suck or you're horrible or anything like that. But it's more or less like, hey, what are we doing? What are we thinking here? What can we do to get you better, and then from that, what I always do is, again, I coach hard during those 2 hours, but the one thing that we do is we pray before practice and we pray after practice, and every single girl that are on my field, At the end of every practice, I'm gonna put my arm around them. I'm gonna tell them I love them and I'm proud of them, and let's work hard and let's focus on getting better. My motto here at ACU is get 1% better every day. As long as we're getting 1% better every day, that's all I can ask for you. So those are things that we do. I'm the loud, crazy one. My coaches, as far as my assistant coaches, they're kind of, it's funny because like Sergio and Whitney, that we talk about it all the time. Like they can kind of, they're usually the crazy ones at their programs, as far as the loud, crazy ones. But coming here, they can kind of take a seat back, a step back, and really just focus on being the calm, cool, and collected one, and allow me to be the crazy loud Italian guy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Coach, I really appreciate the time. I'm going to leave you with one last question, and that is
yeah.
if you had one piece of advice for, any girl who's out there in high school right now who's wanting to play college flag, what would that be?
Um, uh, Main thing that I would say to do is especially if you're looking to obviously be recruited is grades, right? Grades are the most important thing. Make sure your education is by far the most important thing that you need to do. So make sure your grades are in order. And then secondly is just effort and making sure that you're a team player. We can always look for the amazing athletes that are 5-star athletes and the top ones, but at the end of the day, how are you not only treating yourself? Because the one thing that I look for is how are you representing yourself, how you're representing the team, but most importantly, how you're representing your family. So those are the things that we really look for, because the one thing that we preach here is faith, family, and football, and it's in that order.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I really thank you for your time. Wish you the best of luck this season, and hopefully you guys will continue your trend upward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Matt. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.